Now, yes, over to you, Adrian.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So welcome, everyone. I hope you can all hear us okay. This is an introduction to our sales masterclass. And I just got a note that Mark McCarver can't hear us, so we'll see if we can work that out in the background, Mark. But I'll keep going. So at IMARC at the end of last year, I interviewed 5 owners of successful technology companies to really understand what they attributed, the sort of key factors to success. And the leading answer from all 5 was building dedicated skills and capabilities in sales and marketing. And it enabled them to focus on high payoff activities, and they all referred to that as the trigger for growth for their organisation. So based on that feedback, METS Ignited, we decided we'd fund a sales masterclass program just to help other METS companies realise the same outcomes that these successful companies did. And that's the purpose of the sales masterclass today. So I hope that you take the opportunity to take advantage of this course, and I'll hand over to Mark to kick us off and explain a little bit about the program and how it works.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adrian, for the introduction. And I'm going to share with you my screen so that we all have a little bit of extra structure to take us through the next half an hour or so. And if we can just bear one moment. Well, I have a momentary problem with my PowerPoint, but it won't stop me from presenting to you. And first of all, I would like to say thank you very much to METS Ignited and to Adrian and the team for inviting us here today. And it's an exciting opportunity for us. We're very enthusiastic and keen to be with you here this afternoon. Hopefully at some stage my computer will allow me to build these slides, but I will just talk through them for the time being. So in terms of how we're going to manage through the next half an hour, I'll briefly introduce myself and the team, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we've learned about the Australian METS sector through the feedback that you shared with us and the feedback that we've received through METS Ignited. And then that will give us a launch pad from which we can begin to explain the 2 courses that we'll be talking about. So we'll spend about 9 minutes talking about each of the 2 courses, and that'll take us through to about 2:30. And then at 2:30, you can have the opportunity to ask us as many questions as you'd like. Please, as those questions come to mind, please put those through the chat function, and we'll be able to record them there. Monica in our team will record those questions, and that will allow us to answer all of your questions from about 2:30. For those that need to leave at 2:45, we will complete by that time. If we find that there are more questions and people want to stay, we're happy to stay beyond 2:45. So that's more or less how we expect the next half an hour, 45 minutes to unfold. And
do you want me to share the slides, Mark?
That might be better actually, Fraser, because I've got a bit of a lock up here. So if you can, Fraser, that would be great.
Yeah.
So I'll stop sharing and Fraser can pick up. And so what I will do is first of all introduce Fraser and I. So Fraser, you'll get a good opportunity to see Fraser at work right at this moment. So Fraser has been working in sales for over 31 years as a consultant, as a director. Fraser specializes in helping companies just like yours to optimize the processes that you use to engage your business development and sales ambitions. And Fraser, like Fraser is very, very outcome focused. So we are super keenly focused on the end result, which for you is profitable growth. In my case, I've worked all over the world for a variety of business-to-business organizations, most recently Volvo Group. And in those roles, I was based in Sweden and in Singapore and here in Australia. And between Fraser and I, we work with a number of very well-known companies around the world. You'll see some of the brands pop up in a minute, but those are brands that include, for example, Volvo Group, the International Truck Company, Prudential, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and others. So we're pleased to bring that experience for you. And if we can move forward a slide, what I'd like to share now is a little bit about what we've learned by talking with you. So earlier this year, we conducted a survey of the Australian METS sector, and what we did is we took the we asked questions around 4 key topic areas around segmentation, differentiation, the value proposition. So if you can go back a couple of pulls there, Fraser, and business development and sales process. And what we did was we ranked the importance that you felt these topic areas had in terms of being able to achieve your profitable growth ambitions. And we asked you to rank those importance out of 5. And then we also asked you to rank the competence that you have in your organization today. If you have high competence today, it's a 5. If you have low competence today, it's a 1. And therefore you get 2 sets of numbers. And you can see here, the first topic area, segmentation, has a very high importance score. And you can see here that the sector generally rates itself as being below the level of competence that it would like. In terms of differentiation, again, it's a very, very high score for importance and a lower score in terms of competence. In terms of the value proposition, you can see that companies rated it as extremely important. And again, their capabilities being lower than they'd want. And then finally, business development and sales processes, again, extremely important. But again, low in terms of competencies. And all that really tells us is that these 4 topic areas are critically important for your growth and critically important for your growth, but also areas where you recognize you have areas where you want to improve. If we can move on, please, Fraser. So that tells us really that that's super important, that we get these things right. So you are here to achieve profitable growth. That's your pursuit, and you've told us that you want proven, practical, best practice support to achieve it. So this is about having access to real world skills and experiences. You are looking for practical and pragmatic approach to learning these skills rather than academic approach. So what we'll give you will be a very hands-on practical approach. It will be very much one-to-one instruction. It will be done over Zoom, but it'll be very much like being in a classroom. So it'll be one-to-one instruction, and you can work within your teams, and you can work as individuals. It's going to be confidential and collaborative. It's very much about providing a peer-to-peer learning environment, so you can learn amongst your peers. And through the process of learning and applying some of these skills into your business, you'll be able to road test your thinking with your peers, and perhaps they'll be able to help you, and you may be able to help them to bring these tools to life in your business. They are proven tools, as I mentioned to you before. These are tools that we've taken all over the world. They're tools that I've taken literally to every corner of the globe within Volvo Group to assist with the strategic questions around marketing and also the operational questions around implementation of those those things. And then finally, in the last box, Fraser, the processes and the strategies that we're going to share with you, they are solid best practice, but they're not straitjackets. They are designed for you to use and then fit to your specific purposes. So they will become very customized whilst following those best practice principles that I know are very important for all of you. So that's what we're intending to do. And what we can tell you, and what I'm really here to tell you, is that your voice has been heard. You can see here in the bubbles, we won't go through each of these, but the feedback that you as a METS sector have given to Adrian and the METS Ignited team over recent years, and indeed to 1000 Steps as we've conducted the surveys, those voices have been heard, and we will be using your input, your feedback and your needs to design and implement this course in the way that you want it to be done. So what have we got? We're going to have 2 fully integrated sales and marketing masterclasses that enable you to build a strategy and plan that suits your business. The first course, it's going to be 5 lots of 2 hours. We're going to go through the details of that in a moment. That's under the heading of sales and marketing strategy. That'll feature segmentation, differentiation, and value proposition. We'll talk a bit about those in a moment. And then course 2 will be 9 blocks of 2 hours. And that will be around business development and sales process implementation. So broadly, that's about the business development processes, the sales processes, and then how management can then follow up that work, typically through a CRM system or other mechanism to monitor the performance of the sales force. So they're the 2 courses. We're going to go through each of these now in a little bit more detail. So we'll start with the first course. The final point I'll make is that these 2 courses, I should say, they are fully integrated. So I would like to make the point that by fully integrated, what that means is that you can go through each course end to end in sequence and they fit together. And the learnings from each course can be built into the what you take into the next course. So they're fully integrated. So course 1, sales and marketing strategy. The first topic area we'll look at will be what we call segmentation. And what that does is it allows you to confidently allocate your sales and marketing resources into precise segments. It's about saying that the mass market is a mixture of different wants and needs, and it always makes sense to break those up into discrete groups. The shotgun approach, where you treat everybody the same, it typically confuses everyone and it wastes resources. It's inefficient. Instead, by segmenting into different discrete groups, you can make choices about who you decide not to target, just as you can make the choices about who it is you will target. That gives you a more precise and communicable strategy and allows you much greater control over the execution of what you do. We'll teach you how to apply relevant basis to fine-tune your models. We'll also give you some frameworks where you can begin to define and extract and define the unique wants and needs of those individual targets. And with that information, that will allow you then to better direct your marketing mix. Historically, people have talked about the 4 Ps being price, promotion, product, and place, but I suppose there are more Ps than that. Process is one of those, and we will use, that might be the 5th P in this instance, we will use segmentation to be more precise about the way you deploy the sales force as well. So that will be very key and very important for those that want to be more precise about how they will secure their growth. The second area we're going to look at is what we call differentiation. So effective differentiation, this is critically about how you enable yourself to stand out from the crowd so that you can attract more customers. It's important to get this right, because if you're the same as everybody else, it's a recipe for obscurity and homogeneity, which basically means that you become very much put into a box where price becomes the point of distinction and the point of competitive difference. And you don't want to get there. That's not a good place to be. You want to be able to differentiate based on your own unique strengths. So we'll help you to explore how to get there and how to create an axis that your organization can align around. It will give you a defendable competitive advantage as well. So by doing that, what we'll help you to do will be to identify your own natural points of differentiation. We'll help you to explore how those points of differentiation are different to your competitors while still being relevant to to the wants and needs of the people that you're trying to target. And then what we will then help you to do will be to create a plan to engage your point of difference throughout your organization so that you can go through the classic phase of choose, deliver, and communicate, which is the best practice steps that you follow in order to communicate a point of difference that is defendable and strong. And we know from you that this is particularly important in your businesses. The final area in strategy that we're going to look at is one that comes through time and time again, no matter where I go in the world, no matter who I talk to. It's the importance of the value proposition. Critically, it's not just about how you describe it in words, which is very, very important, but it's also about how you're able to monetize that, because if you can monetize, you can charge higher prices. just briefly, without giving too much away right now, we can say that, for example, if your gross profit margin today is 10% and you're routinely giving away a 1% discount, it will actually require an additional 11% more volume just to break even on your overall gross profitability in dollar terms. So giving away price, giving away discount is extremely dangerous and damaging to the P&L. We're going to teach you how to monetize your value proposition so that you can argue how and why the things that differentiate you, how they reduce the risk for the end user, how they reduce their costs and or increase their revenue to arrive at an increase in profitability. Now, if you can demonstrate to your customers that over a lifetime, your profitability is better than your competitors or the profitability that your competitors can offer, or indeed better than doing nothing, that's going to supercharge your sales process. So this area around value proposition is extremely, extremely interesting. And I've got some, things that I personally feel very passionate about, some things that I think you'll find very exciting, and they really can transform your business if you have the desire to sell on value. This can make a real change for you. So that's course 2. I'm going to hand over now to Fraser, who's got the reins on the second part of the course that we have to offer. Fraser, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. And yeah, it's really exciting to see what Mark's talking about there. And the majority of businesses I come across and have come across haven't sat down and looked at these areas and taken the time to do the groundwork to lay this out properly. And it really is exciting and interesting to look at what you're doing there, Mark. I like it a lot. I'm going to cover with you now a different part of the sales process. What do we do? How do we get our salespeople working? How do we drive into new markets? And how do we physically actually do it? I mean, obviously, I've only got 6 or 7 minutes, so I'm going to be quite brief. I'm going to try and give you some concepts to think about. And then from there, that should allow you to sit and say, you know, we should be stepping into this and learning and building out our models around this. Like course 2, I come back to very practical outcomes. We want you to have a good outbound marketing model, a good account-based marketing, and we'll work with you to understand what that actually means. Have clear goals, you know, have metrics within your CRM, you know, a duplicable process for each type of meeting, and ultimately a sales model, but that's manageable and scalable for you as your business, that you know you can take and expand in the direction that you actually want to go. Like everyone wants to grow. You know, most companies want to improve their sales funnel, but there are challenges there that come back to the real basics. And at the start of that is your CRM system. 22% of salespeople don't know what CRM is. Yeah, 40% of CRM salespeople still using spreadsheets, and I think that's a conservative number. 80% of data collected by salespeople doesn't go into CRM, and you know, and we know that organizations that have good sales processes and are successful, you know, have clear processes that sit around that. We know that's the numbers. So it always amazes me there's no degree in sales. There isn't, you can't go and do a degree in selling, yet the complexity of running a good sales model is staggering. And in our businesses, obviously, we've got product, we've got operations, and then we've got sales. All 3 parts are critical to our success. All have to work. If one of them doesn't work, it's a problem. Selling is really, really complex. And if you look up here, you've got outbound lead generation. How do we reach out? How do we build up our databases and drive traffic into our business? And then you've got the sales process. How do we map that out and make sure that it's followed the right way so that we're able to manage our businesses more effectively? Under that, you've got CRM. Under that, you've got how do I manage my teams and myself? Yeah, right. If you're a small business, and what admin support do I have? How do I invest in admin support? What does that look like? How do I run my marketing? You know, the team members, how do I assign the roles? And, you know, when we're all quite small businesses, so everybody's got to get stuck in. How do we get that working? How do we develop our people on a consistent and ongoing basis? Why would sales be different to any other industry in the thought that we don't have to develop our people? I mean, then finally, right, what templates are we using? What analytics? You know, and there's a variety of things there. It is really, really complicated. I think, though, if you take it back to basics, there's 2 parts to lead generation. You've got inbound an outbound marketing, which then drives into a qualification piece. You've then got account-based marketing and partnerships and agents that then drives into qualification. And you've then got your pipelines and the stages of your pipelines, which vary product to product and business to business. So I'm just going to cover lead generation with you, just to give you some insight into a thought around the complexity and how a model for lead gen should look. We believe that the start point of lead generation is where are the names, right? Who benefits from your offer? How do I find that contact? How do I use LinkedIn? Right? How do I use my existing databases? How do I drive into new markets with agents and so on and so forth? Where are the contacts? We then want to convert them into our world, right? We want to draw them in there. We want to store them somewhere. We want to manage them in a systematic and effective way. We then want to categorize, because not all contacts are equal, right? So we need to categorize our contacts and need to know what they are, and we should be constantly readjusting that depending on who they are, where they are, the size of the business, how they interact with us, and a variety of other things. And then one of the things that gets missed by virtually everyone, and I can't think of one business I've worked with that does this well, is how do we nurture our databases? How do we nurture the contacts? Because ultimately selling is about letting people know that you exist. It's about letting them know that you're there so that when they have a need for that, they can interact with you, engage with you. If people don't know you exist, they cannot buy from you. It's not possible. Yeah. So nurturing your contacts is a really critical piece. And then finally, probably the most important bit, and the bit that terrifies everyone, is how do we convert our contacts into meetings? Because ultimately, if you don't have a meeting, you don't have a pipeline, right? A pipeline only comes from that first meeting. That's the start point of a pipeline. So if we lead in there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you there's a variety of different sales models depending on your products, depending on your marketplace, depending on the size of the sale. I mean, there's a lot of complexity there. But I'm going to show you two different sales cycles from a pipeline perspective. Yeah, right? One very, very simple and one very complex. They all have a very similar flow, but ultimately your business will need its own pipeline model there that you clearly delineate, that fits around your cycle. Yeah, but I'm just going to show you two because I could show you 8 and then you'd be bored with me. Yeah, so simple sales cycle. Okay, this is what I would call an inside sale. Okay, an inside sale is virtual. Okay, it's simple. It's one meeting, maybe 2 meetings. It's very structured. It's extremely easy to work out your metrics and your numbers that come from this. It's easy to manage, and you need a process around it. So in this case, it's a first meeting. It might be a product that costs $500, $1,000, $2,000 to $3,000, $10,000 even, yeah? Okay, but you have that qualification meeting, you engage with a customer, you share information, they've maybe reached out to you, you submit a proposal to them, and then you close the sale, they become a client, and you've got that onboarding piece of payment that sits around it. So it's very, very simple, but it needs to be managed the right way. Often I find if it's just a little bit more complex, you might have a first meeting, then a proposal meeting, and then they sign up and they become a client. But it's all virtual. You can scale off the back of that anywhere in the world when it's virtual like that. At the other end of the scale, though, you've got extremely sophisticated sales processes where you've got an unqualified opportunity, a lead comes in, you're doing a first meeting, or you're doing you might visit them 4 or 5 times before the sales cycle starts. You then step into a light discovery, a commercial qualification piece. Do I want to do business with this client or not? You're qualifying them, not the other way around. You're right. You're building, when you go into complex sales cycle, it's extremely expensive to run through. I've got clients that it costs $250,000 just to go through a sales cycle with it. So we have to make the right decision at this point. We then step into a deep technical discovery. We move from there into collaboration or supplier qualification or demonstration and a variety of other things that sort of can sit in this space. We would then submit a first proposal, which usually consists of a brief meeting, submit the proposal, a proposal meeting. We then step into negotiations. How's that structured? How that's laid out? And then ultimately, we want them to become clients after that. So you've got 2 different sales cycles at both ends of the spectrum. So what we're saying to you is, as a business, you need to build your model. You need to build out your lead generation process and the structure of what sits around that, driving into the right volume of leads with the right people, sitting down then and stepping into a consistent sales process with good quality discovery, which is at the heart of all sales meetings, leading to good relationships with your clients and hopefully them buying from you. So the outcomes in a bit more detail. After the course, you're going to come out with a clear set of goals and metrics that you're going to measure, and you're going to use as you move forward within your business. From there, you'll have a good lead gen model, looking at outbound. Is that the right thing for you? Is it account-based marketing? Is it targeted? What tools are you using? How do you use LinkedIn? Do you run webinars? Do you, what's your go-to-market model from a lead gen perspective? Then we want you to have structured meetings. So what does a first meeting look like? How do you train your teams on how to do first meetings? If you've got a founder-based sales process, how do you bring someone into your world so that they can do meetings when they're not founders, right, and don't have your passion and your energy for your business? How do you do discovery? What are your questions that sit within discovery? We then step into collaboration, negotiation. So how do you interact with your clients? How do you collaborate with them? Because collaboration is far more effective than closing them down. Right? I want to work with my clients. I want my clients to like what we do. We like what we do. They do. We're helping them do what they do better. And then finally, right, we want you to have the CRM system set up the right way and process that sits around it all. So there's two very, very different parts to the process here. You've got this sales and marketing strategy piece here, which is geared around building out your go-to-market strategy. It's geared around engaging with the markets, driving into it. And then the second course is a technical piece, which gives you the skills, it builds your model, it trains your people in how to become more effective from a sales point of view. So, right, dead on time. Well, 1 minute over, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take some Q&A, and we're happy to answer any questions between METS and Mark and myself. There we go. Questions? Everyone's quiet, huh? It's always a choice, isn't it, right? We could do questions as we go, right? Or we can do questions at the end. So it's a bit of intense here, right? And then now we've got 15 minutes, yeah. So sorry, yeah.
So guys, am I able to, it's Mark here.
Hi, Mark.
I just have a question. We've got obviously our own internal process. I think it's sort of been adapted from the Miller-Hyman model. So basically, with the concepts, you would work with us to sort of mold into our current existing model and key areas or deficient areas where we can add a bit of value. Is that a correct assumption? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, right. I mean, what we're doing is giving a framework. It's not replacing what you've got. Yeah, right. You've got your existing models there. Yeah, right. It's saying how do you get consistency across the board from the very start of that conceptualizing what your target market is, your segmentation, right through to what are your people doing, what are your teams doing, and how do you manage them consistently? So, everyone's got bits, yeah, right? What we want you to have is an end-to-end process.
And just another question, do you cover off on like social media marketing through LinkedIn and best ways to sort of penetrate, to generate leads through that avenue?
Yeah, so from a lead gen perspective, definitely, right? We're looking at outbound lead generation. How do you use your databases and target them? How do you reach out strategically in a volume, but in a targeted way from a more targeted model? So account-based marketing is where we're focusing on specific companies you want to engage with. Yeah, so how do you reach out to them? How do you use LinkedIn to do that? What's your content creation? And it comes back to Mark's piece at the beginning. Once you really understand your differentiation and that segmentation piece, the language that you use to communicate with the clients, it becomes obvious, right? So would you add anything to that, Mark?
Sorry?
I think that's a good answer, Fraser. Yes, it's as you say. One question that I just noticed in the chat box, and please, I'd just like to encourage anybody that has a question, please use the chat box at the bottom of your computer. If you just hover your mouse over, you should be able to enter a chat function and ask a question of us. And no question is too small or too not important enough. Please, whatever you have, just share with us. One question that I have seen asked is, what is a CRM? It's been partially answered, but I want to take the question more directly for you all now. So a CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. It typically refers to a system, but we know from experience that actually the system is only a tiny, tiny part of CRM. What is much more important is the processes that you use in your business to manage your prospects and customers. And what you could say to what we're doing is everything we're doing, including the strategy part, course 1 and course 2, which is the process implementation, that is all CRM. It is basically the end-to-end processes that you need in your business to manage your customer relationships. And so the most important thing that I think we find all over the world is the one thing that's always missing is good process. And that's why companies fail. I often use the example, if you go into a business and you ask the company about their HR processes or their legal processes or their manufacturing processes, they'll go, no problem. And they'll reach out behind them, they'll pull down a book or a folder, and everything will be mapped out in enormous detail, and people will know that, people will follow it, and people will be trained in it. But if you ask people around businesses to share their CRM processes, there's usually a blank look, or people may point you to the CRM system. And that's the problem. And that's the problem that we aim to solve here. It's very, very important. If you want to manage the productivity and efficiency of your sales force and achieve your sales ambitions, you must have good processes. And that's what we're going to teach you. So whatever system you have, and even if you don't have a system, we can advise you on that as well. But if you have a system, we will work with you to integrate that system with good processes to help you achieve your ambitions.
Absolutely. I mean, CRM, like Mark's saying, it's two parts. You have client relationship management. What do you do? CRM, initially in my presentation, was talking about the technology that sits behind it. You can use a spreadsheet, you can use Salesforce or Microsoft, or you can use anything in between, but usually it's a piece of tech where you store your databases, and from that you can manage and see how effectively you're engaging with people. Yeah? So, but yeah, it's pointless if you don't have a process. And I agree with you, Mark. Yeah, so.
And we have a couple questions regarding the course acceptance and registration. Do someone want to answer those?
Kathleen, do you want to have a look at that?
I can have a look at that. So there's a couple there. So I think first one's having been invited to this webinar, it means we've been accepted to the first course. There's no direct correlation, but the expectation is that we're working very, very hard to have everyone that's actually registered actually attend a course. So we had originally planned 1, we're now up to 4, which is where we're at the moment. I suspect, at the numbers that we're at, I think 4 is probably about right, so that everyone that's actually applied that's a METS organisation should be able to attend. So that's our overall plan. If we get another burst of enthusiasm, I'll be talking to Adrian about getting it funded. But what our hearts are saying is that if you've applied, we're going to try and get you on a course. And that's why we've now got 4 running. So I think that kind of covers that one. Yep. I think there was another one in that same space. So, and just to talk about that, so there was another one, which is when will we find out who's been accepted to do the course? Well, we weren't expecting the level of excitement, and we've been wonderfully oversubscribed, so enthusiasm. So the closing date for the course registrations is actually the 27th of May. So the intention is we will leave it open till then, because that's what we've published. I don't really want to close this early. So we would be notifying people a week after, and the intent is we'll actually send you out a week after that. It'll say, these are the courses that we're offering. Tell us what your preferences are in terms of when you prefer to attend. Number 1, I want to come Wednesday mornings or Wednesday afternoons, or Thursday mornings or Thursday afternoons. So that's how we plan to and then we will do our very, very best to accommodate your first or second preferences in terms of the courses. So I think that covers off the ones that are more directed at me, and I probably want to hand back to Fraser. I think there's some there for you.
Yeah, there's Fraser. Do you need to do both courses, or for example, can you just do only the second course or only the first?
I mean, I think you can do. This is my take, and Mark, it would be good to hear what you think as well. Yeah, right. I mean, you can definitely do one or the other. The sales course you should be doing that from the top down, and for all of your salespeople and anybody that's involved in the sales process, I would recommend that you get them in there. The first course is very strategic, so people that are involved in strategy within your business and understanding the strategy, I'd have them in there. You can do one without the other. As a business, you would want to have some on the first, and then have the balance, and including the people that were on the first on the second. So roughly that's how I would approach it.
Okay, and then as you
Wait,
mentioned,
Mark.
involvement. Oh, sorry. Well, just because as you're mentioning involvement, I want to just also bring in Paul's question, and then Mark, you can also answer
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And she says,
Yeah.
how many people should be involved per company? We've identified 8 of us, from CEO down to junior marketing admin support, and should it be key decision makers that are the target audience for the masterclass? So again,
that's a good question, Monica. We do have a slide that talks to who we think should attend. And now, of course, it depends on the size of the organization. But as far as the course 1 is concerned, the strategy course, we think that because that's so critical in terms of the direction that your business will go in, and where you expect your sales to come from, and about articulating the value proposition, we really think that needs to be the senior team. So that could be this. I think the CEO would need to be part of that, depending on the size of the company. But the CEO, and certainly heads of sales, people in a GM role, or a head of marketing, head of sales, head of strategy, anybody with those sorts of responsibilities, even the COO, CFO, depending on the titles that you have, but anybody that has a stakeholding in strategy, anybody that has a stakeholding in revenue generation, or indeed the overall positioning of the organization, need to be there, because it's the thought leadership that dictates the direction where revenue will come from in the future. That's why they need to be present. In terms of the question for who attends the second course, I think many of those same people need to be there, but you would expand it to include the broader sales team, those people who actually be performing the processes. But the reason that the leaders need to be in the second course is because in that second course you'll find that we do challenge the attendees to think very carefully about the value proposition and about the kind of questions that you need to be asking of prospects and customers in order to understand their business. And that requires thought leadership. And you want to have the right people in the room walking away confident that the sales organization has captured everything that is necessary to be successful. So that would be my recommendation. So how many people should attend? If there's enthusiasm for the team, why not get the team together and get them all to sit in the same room, or at least virtually using laptops to represent the collective thought leadership of that organization. That way everybody is aligned and everybody can collectively contribute towards the development of a strategy and processes that everybody believes in and everybody understands. I think that if you can make that time available, I really do think it will be very beneficial for you.
Okay, and we have a couple more questions that I just want to get to. Are we good with that?
Yeah. So, well, let me just say that Mark's right. I think the other reason for having senior management there is you need to manage your process. And if you don't understand the model, that's the biggest cause of failure in sales with sales teams, is the management don't understand the model. There's a philosophy, yeah, I'll bring a salesperson, they know what to do. And actually, often they don't. And so you end up in this cycle of consistently replacing salespeople. Management needs to have a structure there. So in having the vision and the structure and being part of both of those parts allows you to scale the business. Can I just, Monica, before I come to that, there was a question from Tim McPherson. The METS client list is very small, only mining customers in Australia. So Tim, I mean, it's a really good point. I think that if your target marketplace is 10 companies or 20 companies, maybe there's a critical mass 10 companies, you can drive into those companies yourself. Maybe you don't need to have any support in your sales structure or not. As soon as you go out with that, though, 20, 30, 40, 50 target customers, you need a model around that based around account-based marketing and based around engaging consistently with those marketplaces, getting the structure right, making sure that the right people within your company are talking to the right people in that company and having the right conversations with them. We work with a client that only dealt with pharmaceutical firms. So there's only 25 of them. They really wanted to talk to 30 of them. But that building out of that model and getting the structure right was critical to them, because everybody knew what they were doing. There was a consistency and a structure that sat around that. So, so I would say, yes, it'll benefit you. But if your target market is 10 or less, then maybe you know exactly who they are. You already have the relationships, and you're not going to expand from there. Yeah. So, next question. Anybody else?
I think there's a couple that are probably in my line, and I've failed to introduce myself before, which is a bit poor. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Kathleen Conrad. I'm with METS Ignited. I am the General Manager responsible for Masterclasses. So that's hence why I'm on the call and answering some of these questions. So I apologise for not introducing myself before. David's asked when the courses will commence and over what period of time. So the course one will actually commence on either Wednesday, at this stage, either Wednesday or Thursday, the 17th of June. And they will run for 5 weeks, every week at exactly the same time. So you can do that calculation yourself. Our current planning, and we wanted to see what level of response we had to course one before we decided on course two, but our current planning for course two would be, it would follow shortly thereafter. So it would probably be another 3 or 4 weeks after, 2 or 3 weeks after that, we would actually start course two. And then it would run through July, August is what we would be looking at. And again, from my recollection, Fraser, we were going to do a course a week. Yeah.
2 sessions a week. 2 sessions.
2 sessions a week. Sorry. So that would run for just over a month then. Sorry. Yes, I apologise. So there was that one.
Just quickly answer Paula there, and Monica's answered it there, but the sessions are all deeply interactive. It's about breakout rooms. It's about building models. We use a base principle of Bloom's taxonomy from our teaching methodology, which is you learn it, you apply it, and then you make it your own. So we want to take people on a journey where at the end result of this is you're practically applying and developing it to fit your business at the end of the process. It's not enough that we just give you some head knowledge. Right? It's not what we stand for as a business. We want your businesses to transform, and to give you the opportunity. Mark, we were discussing this the other day. It doesn't matter whether you want to go international or don't want to go international. It doesn't matter whether you want to stay within your region or expand outside Australia or step in the bigger Australia or step into new markets. What this is designed to do is to fit what you're doing. And that expansion, encourage you and help you get some structure there to expand your businesses and grow the businesses. And one of the attractions with ourselves is we are international. We're based in Singapore, Australia, UK. So we understand what it's like to open new markets and to expand into new regions. And that's why part of the reason why we're doing this with you is we give you that confidence to step into new spaces. Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually Paulie here. Sorry, I've unmuted myself. It's easier to actually talk to you. So that we'll have those sessions within that 2 hours, because I know we'll obviously do this outside of the actual program, but will we have the opportunity while we're doing that in the 2 hours to have the breakout rooms come back and then do this as a step?
So in the actual sessions, we have breakout rooms. So there's a lot of breakout rooms because you don't learn much when you're sat there listening to someone talk for 2 hours. Yeah. So we really break it up. It's very, very interactive. And then there's work afterwards as well. We're expecting you guys to do stuff, and build out your models. Yeah. Right. And what we found that's most valuable is if you own it and you drive that build of your content, actually that's what transforms your business at the end of the day. Yeah. So
great. Thank you.
Really work hard to do that. Yeah. That's a really critical part of it. Yeah. So.
Thanks.
Let me pick up on a few other questions that have come through. The first is, do participants have to attend every webinar session during the program? Yeah, I think that's necessary. You'll find that the programs are designed so that each 2 hour block builds into the next. So I think if you commit to the full session and do the whole stream, you'll get much more out of it. If you just come into bits and then don't attend, you're going to miss a lot. So please, if this is something that's going to be valuable for your business, please allocate the time. I'd recommend that. Will watching the recordings count as attendance? Not really, no. And the reason for that is they're not just recordings. It's not just about you listening to us. That's not how this works. We will challenge you. We will give you things to complete during the 2 hours. You'll go away, you'll work in groups. It could be amongst your own team members to build on the structures that we've shared with you. And then you'll bring them back and we will stress test those. And then there may be some work that you do at the conclusion that you'll do back in your businesses to further build on what we've started. So it is very interactive, and you'll find that it will be challenging at times, but at the end of it, you'll feel as though you've really developed muscles that you didn't have before. and these are muscles that I can assure you will be reflected in dollars and cents. What time of day will the sessions be held? As Kathleen mentioned, we've tentatively allocated Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th. There'll be an AM and a PM session available, and I think Kathleen will send out a communication in the next few weeks, which asks you to state when you would prefer to attend. It will be one of those four slots.
So we had, at this stage, the planning certainly for the first course was for 10 AM, so that was the intention. And we were planning the AM sessions to be 10 AMs to allow our and that's, sorry, I should say that I'm in Brisbane, sorry. So it's over this side of the country, and that was intended to allow our Western Australian colleagues to also be able to attend without having to get out of bed preposterously early. And then we were looking at an afternoon time slot, and we debated that quite a bit, but at this stage I think we'd settled on 2 PM.
Yeah. Estimated time to allocate per week during the program to complete activities. I'll speak to course 1 here in a moment. Fraser will answer for course 2. For course 1, it's 2 hours a week, so it'll be 2 hours. There'll be 2 hours for segmentation. Then there'll be the next 2 weeks will be 2 hours each for differentiation, and then the final 2 weeks will be 2 hours per week for value proposition. And there will be a little bit of homework between each of these. And that homework will really be an opportunity for you to take what you've learned during the course, gather your team around, and then build it, polish it, break it down, rebuild it, and then bring it back for feedback. So, and again, the more energy, the more commitment, the more effort you put into that process, the better the outcome. So, and we'll guide you through that. Fraser, you're going to talk to course 2 for that.
Yeah, I'll do course 2. I'm just conscious of time as well, right? Because we're taking your time more than we said we would, yeah. So anybody that needs to leave, please feel free. And so again, we're 2 hours twice a week, yeah? So it's a commitment for 9 sessions. So it's 4.5 weeks at the end. It's very interactive. There will be assessments there that you need to do, and just to answer the final question, you will receive certificates at the end. And Mark's being really harsh there, right? You know, I'm not going to undermine you here, Mark. He's correct in what he's saying. You need to do the course. You don't get the same from the video as you get from being in there and doing it. It's the same with not switching the video on. We know pedagogically, right? You don't learn so much if you don't put your video on and interact, if you just sit there passively. So, you know, I would, as Mark said, recommend, but there will be videos for the sessions that you can watch and catch up if you've missed something. So yeah, but yeah, that's it. So can the overseas business, Kathleen, is that a yes? I think it's a yes from Susan.
I would have thought so. I might take that one on advisement, and if Adrian wants to jump up and have a comment, but
certainly from
no, I think it'll be okay. You know, we won't be able to adjust too much on time zones, obviously, because of the program itself. But knowing that a lot of businesses have international sales leaders and programs, and we do want you to be able to apply it in the framework of your business, it would, you know, we're happy to accommodate that.
Okay. So let's wrap up. Yeah, Mark's going to wrap up. But Adrian, do you have anything to say while you're here? Yeah, just No,
look, I think the level of questions have been great, and I think people have obviously considered what their needs are by the specific types of questions that we've got. So Kathleen and the team are available if there's any other questions after the fact. So don't, keep them coming, send them through. They help us as well work with, Mark and Fraser and adapt and develop the course. As Kathleen mentioned, we were overwhelmed with the response, so she's already come and requested a few extra courses, and if we need more, then I'm happy to do so, because I think this is a really sort of key component to success. And as I said at the beginning with the IMARC, the people we interviewed for IMARC, this was the #1 factor that was consistent across all 5 interviews with successful METS companies about what they did differently. So I think it's important for the sector, so we're happy to support wherever we can.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Adrian. And really, I think Adrian's covered perfectly, really, the summary to this meeting. I want to thank everybody for attending. I can say, I speak for Monica and Fraser and myself, we are really excited and keen to work with you. Our greatest motivation, truthfully, our greatest motivation is to help you become more successful. And we know from experience that we can do that. So if you can give us your time and your commitment, then we're there for you. And we're very much looking to meeting with you in June.
Perfect.
Thanks all.
Yeah. See you all then. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.